Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here, and great job to everyone that's come before me. You are tough acts to follow, but I will do my best. So, to start off, I have an announcement to make. Social media is about to disappear. Okay, probably not tomorrow, and probably not this year, but most certainly within my lifetime. With the continuously evolving and ever-changing evolution of online technologies, it is simply inevitable that social media sites are set to become obsolete sometime in the near future. Now, why does this matter? Social media has become increasingly popular in the last decade. Currently, a staggering 32% of the world's population are Facebook users. And as that user base grows, so too does the importance of social media as a cultural record and a significant snapshot of the time that we are living in. Social media has been embraced not only by individuals, but also by institutions and groups. And as I'm sure you're all aware, academic libraries are no exception. Because they are free to use and relatively easy to set up, social media sites have been embraced by academic libraries as a way to reach users and communicate news and events. In a recent survey done by Lou et al. In 2015, 370 libraries across Ontario were surveyed about their social media usage. Of these, 97% either were using social media in their libraries or were strongly considering getting social media sites sometime in the near future. In the same survey, the libraries were asked about their preservation strategy for this content. 60% of the libraries that were using social media had not considered preservation strategies for their social media content at all, and only a very small handful had actually developed a preservation plan to completion. When questioned why these libraries weren't considering social media preservation plans, this was a common response. Social media contents are perceived as not being worth preserving. Now, this statement really struck some interest in me, so I pursued this idea of social media being worth preserving in a research paper that I wrote at the iSchool last semester. And I wanted to know, why weren't libraries developing preservation plans for their content? Is social media really so different that it doesn't warrant the same preservation concerns as other library materials, such as books or online materials? In this presentation, I'm going to take you through my journey of understanding social media as content that is worthy of preservation, and I will also go into briefly about how to start a preservation plan for your social media content in your library. So, getting ahead of myself. Why are the majority of libraries currently not considering the preservation of social media? One reason is that it can be seen as very challenging. When we are talking about social media data, we are talking about a lot of data. So if I can just count one Mississippi, here's how many tweets were just published in that 1 second alone, if this is an average day on Twitter. And of course, that number is becoming exponentially larger as I continue the sentence. So just the sheer vastness of the amount of data that we are talking about can be enough to deter people when they start thinking about how to go about preserving this. However, today I'm not arguing that every library should be tackling the issue of complete social media preservation, as there are institutions that are tackling that issue. Rather, I'm talking about the individual responsibility of each library to preserve social media that they are generating. So I urge you not to get buried in this mountain of tweets as we continue talking today. I'll be attempting to bring the scope of this issue right down to the day-to-day life of the academic librarian. So when one is considering how to go about creating a preservation plan, there are lots of things to consider, and the first is how to actually access the data. So there are a few options for this. One is to utilize an API, which stands for an Application Programming Interface. This is basically a back-end software that can communicate with social media platforms and extract data into a machine-readable format. Now, to get access to social media data through an API, even your own, you do need permission from that social media platform, and it can involve a sort of lengthy and sometimes expensive negotiation process with these social media platforms. So it wouldn't be a viable option for every library. Another option that has been discussed in the literature is just to simply take screenshots of your social media accounts periodically. Now, of course, there's probably some issues with this. You'd have to be really keeping on top of your social media activity in order to properly capture everything that's going on. which leads me to this third option, which is available currently for Facebook and Twitter. And this is an option to download all data that has been produced in association with your social media account. So this is just something in your Facebook or Twitter settings that you can request. I tried it out with my own personal Facebook account. They emailed me a zip file of every single piece of data that I had ever produced on my Facebook and every piece of data that had ever been produced in association to my account. So this is an option for any library. It's currently free, so I think this is the best option for access at the moment. Of course, we can't talk about social media without also talking about the issue of privacy. For libraries that are considering preserving their social media, they may be concerned about the privacy and anonymity of users who have interacted with their social media accounts. So this leads to the question if posting on social media also means permission for that content to be preserved. Now, technically and legally it does. If you post on social media, you are inherently agreeing for that content to be out there, to be preserved, potentially. But I do think each library should make the choice about if they want to anonymize their data for the sake of protecting their users before they preserve it. And I think that's a decision that every library can make. Okay, but what's the big deal about social media? Sure, we use social media for communication, to access our users, maybe to have a little fun every once in a while. But those materials do not have the same intellectual or academic value in the way that theses or online repositories or articles do, right? Well, spoiler, I would argue that it all depends on your definition of value. Social media platforms bear witness and record this full scope of human behavior, from day-to-day life to witnessing globally reaching social movements. One may use social media as a way of responding to a new library program, or as a way of connecting to individuals from all around the globe in a way that was just not possible before this widespread dissemination. Social media content can be dark and scary, and there may be some things we'd rather not remember. There may be some things we'd rather forget, in fact, maybe like this guy, if any of you were following this Twitter debate in recent weeks. But social media can also be uplifting and rallying and has created a global community never before seen in human history, as is demonstrated maybe a bit more in this response to that guy. Either way, it can be argued that social media is one of the most significant cultural records of our time. Not only is social media worthy of preservation consideration, it is poised to serve as an irreplaceable snapshot of human interaction and life in this time that we are living in. Now, whether or not you agree with me on those fronts, preserving social media is also just the right thing to do in a workplace. Such an action is similar to developing a records management strategy. It should be the responsibility of every workplace to be responsible for the materials that they are generating, and documenting social media should be a significant part of that. I understand that it can be challenging to think of social media as content that needs preserving, but when we neglect an entire form of digital materials, and digital materials that we are creating at that, just because they are not traditionally seen as intellectual, we are running this risk of losing a huge colloquium of knowledge that could otherwise be saved for future study. If we do nothing, it will one day disappear. And I think that considering the value of social media is a consideration worth making. As knowledge institutions whose missions are to provide information, teach, and allow access for our users now and in the future, we simply can't do nothing. We need to take responsibility for our content by acknowledging the role of social media in our present. By doing this, libraries can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Thank you.